The metal corridors of the Vorthon warship hummed with quiet energy. Admiral Zektar walked slowly through the observation deck, his clawed feet clicking against the polished floor. Through the massive window, Earth spun peacefully in the darkness of space. The small blue planet looked harmless from this distance. Zektar's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. His yellow eyes studied the planet below with the patience of a predator watching prey. For 6 months his ships had observed this world from the shadows. The humans living there had no idea they were being watched. "Status report," Zektar commanded, his intelligence officer. Commander Velnox approached with a data tablet clutched in his thin arms. Like all Vorthons, he stood nearly 8 feet tall with gray-green skin that looked like old leather. His large head contained a brain that had been analyzing human behavior for months. "The humans continue their primitive conflicts," Velnox reported. "They fight over resources, territory, and ideological differences. Their technology is basic. Most cannot even reach their own moon reliably. Their weapons are crude chemical, explosives, and simple projectile firearms." Zektar nodded with satisfaction. "Perfect. They have the aggression we need but lack the sophistication to threaten us. How do they organize their military forces?" "Poorly," Velnox replied. "They have hundreds of separate nations, each with its own military. No unified command structure, no coordination between forces. They spend more time fighting each other than preparing for external threats." The Admiral's breathing slits fluttered with amusement. "Excellent. Divide and conquer has always been our way. They will be grateful for the chance to serve a superior civilization." Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Jake Murphy sat in a room that officially did not exist. The North American Aerospace Defense Command had many levels, but this one was buried so deep that most NORAD personnel had never heard of it. The walls were lined with screens showing data from satellites, listening posts, and sensor arrays around the world. Jake was a quiet man with sharp eyes and graying hair at his temples. He had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Every training exercise, every equipment upgrade, every personnel assignment had been building toward first contact with an alien species. "Sir, we're picking up increased chatter from the bogies," reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from her workstation. Amy was 28 years old with bright red hair and a mind that could crack any code the aliens threw at her. For 3 months, she had been intercepting and decoding alien communications. The aliens thought their encryption was unbreakable. They were wrong. "What are they saying?" Jake asked. Amy's fingers danced across her keyboard, bringing up translated text on her main screen. "They're discussing deployment schedules for something called Operation Harvest. Admiral Zektar is requesting permission from someone called the High Command to begin recruitment protocols." Jake leaned over her shoulder to read the intercepts. The alien messages painted a clear picture. The Vorthans were not interested in peaceful contact. They needed soldiers for a war against something called the Krillian Horde. They planned to recruit humans as expendable shock troops. "They think we're going to be cannon fodder," Jake said quietly. "That's not the worst part," Amy replied. She pulled up another message. "Look at this intelligence assessment." The document described humans as a barely civilized species with primitive technology and no real military capability. The aliens believed human aggression was purely instinctual, like wild animals fighting over territory. They saw no evidence of strategic thinking or advanced planning. Jake smiled grimly. "They have no idea what they're walking into." 500 miles away, Dr. Richard Hayes worked in an underground laboratory that most people would never believe existed. The facility was buried beneath a seemingly ordinary farm in Kansas. From the surface, it looked like nothing more than cornfields and an old barn. Below ground, it was one of the most advanced research centers on Earth. Richard was examining pieces of alien technology that had been recovered over the past 20 years. Most people thought they were meteors or space debris when they crashed. The recovery teams knew better. "This scanner is interesting," Richard told his assistant, Monica Price. He held up a device that looked like crystalline flour with metal petals. "It's designed to detect technological signatures from orbit." Monica, a brilliant engineer in her 30s, studied the device carefully. "What's its range and sensitivity?" Limited, Richard replied. It can detect radio transmissions, nuclear reactors, and basic manufacturing, but it misses anything more than 50 feet underground. It also can't penetrate certain materials we've been using in our construction projects. Monica raised an eyebrow. So they don't know about the deep facilities? They have no idea, Richard confirmed. Their scans show our surface infrastructure, cities, highways, power plants, airports. They see what looks like a typical developing technological civilization. They missed everything that matters. He walked over to a workbench covered with partially assembled alien devices. Their technology is advanced, but not as much as they probably want us to think. Maybe 50 to 70 years ahead of our public technology. But we've been developing classified systems for decades. Monica picked up what looked like a small communication device. How does this compare to our quantum communication arrays? Richard laughed. It's actually less sophisticated. They're still using electromagnetic transmission with basic encryption. Our quantum entanglement networks would seem like magic to them. Across the country, General Patricia Stone stood in a command center that was hidden beneath the Nevada desert. The room was vast, with dozens of officers monitoring screens that showed military installations around the world. Most of those installations did not appear on any public maps. Patricia was a woman who had spent her entire career preparing for the unknown. She had risen through the ranks by asking a simple question: what if we're not alone? While other military leaders focused on conventional threats, she had been building defenses against unconventional ones. Status report on the hidden assets, she commanded. Colonel Daniel Foster, her second-in-command, consulted his tablet. All underground installations are operational and undetected. The submarine bases are running normally. The orbital platforms remain disguised as space debris. Patricia nodded. The orbital platforms were her greatest achievement. Over 15 years, she had overseen the construction of dozens of weapon stations that looked like abandoned satellites or space junk. The alien scanners had dismissed them as technological debris. What about the lunar installations? She asked. The mining colonies are producing on schedule, Daniel reported. The aliens think our moon base is just a small research station with 12 people. They don't know about the manufacturing centers or the 3,000 personnel working in the underground facilities. Patricia allowed herself a small smile. And the Mars operations? Completely invisible to their sensors. The habitat domes are buried under artificial rock formations. As far as the aliens know, humans have never been to Mars. The deception had been carefully planned for decades. Earth's public space program was deliberately limited and inefficient. Meanwhile, the classified space program had been building colonies and industrial facilities throughout the solar system. The aliens saw only what they were meant to see. 3 days later, the first official contact occurred exactly as Jake Murphy had predicted. Massive alien ships appeared in Earth's skies, their hulls gleaming like mirrors in the sunlight. People around the world stopped what they were doing to stare upward in wonder and terror. Admiral Zektar's image appeared on every television and computer screen on Earth. His reptilian features and yellow eyes made many humans instinctively afraid. But his translated words were carefully chosen to sound friendly and reassuring. People of Earth, the Admiral began. I am Admiral Zektar of the Vorthan Empire. We have come to your world in friendship and with great opportunity. For centuries, we have led an alliance of civilized species called the Galactic Coalition. We have watched your world and seen great potential in your people. The speech continued for 10 minutes, describing the wonders of galactic civilization and the honor of serving alongside advanced alien species. Zektar spoke of humanity's natural courage and fighting spirit. He offered Earth the chance to join the stars and play a vital role in defending civilized space against barbaric enemies. To most humans watching, it sounded like the greatest opportunity in history. First contact with friendly aliens who wanted to share their advanced technology and include humanity in their galactic community. But in the hidden command centers around Earth, military leaders knew the truth. Amy Clark had decoded the real alien communications. They were not offering partnership. They were offering recruitment into an alien army that needed expendable soldiers. President William Jackson met with his advisors in a secure conference room deep beneath the White House. The room was shielded against any form of electronic surveillance, including alien technology that might be listening. "What's our response going to be?" the president asked. Captain Stephen Brooks stepped off the human transport ship and onto the docking platform of Nethys Prime. The alien capital world stretched out before him like something from a dream. Massive towers reached toward the purple sky, connected by bridges that seemed to float in the air. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings like schools of metal fish. Stephen was a career military officer with 20 years of experience. He had been chosen to lead the human delegation because he could play his role perfectly. To the aliens watching, he looked like a simple soldier who was amazed by advanced technology. In reality, he was one of Earth's most skilled intelligence officers. "Incredible," Stephen said loudly, making sure the alien escorts could hear him. "I've never seen anything like this." The Vorthan guide, a tall reptilian creature named Sub-Commander Threx, swelled with pride. "This is merely one of our smaller cities," Threx boasted. "Wait until you see the true wonders of Coalition space." Behind Stephen, communications specialist Laura Bennett carried what looked like a simple recording device. The aliens had scanned it and found exactly what they expected: a primitive camera for documenting their visit. They had no idea it was actually a quantum communication array that could send real-time data back to Earth through dimensions the aliens didn't know existed. Laura was young and energetic, with blonde hair and bright blue eyes that made her seem harmless to the alien observers. She smiled and pointed at everything like an excited tourist, while secretly cataloging defensive positions and scanning for electronic vulnerabilities. "The architecture is amazing," she said, while her hidden sensors mapped the structural weaknesses of every building in sight. "How do you make the bridges float like that?" Threx launched into a long explanation about gravitic manipulation fields. He never noticed that Laura's innocent questions were systematically extracting detailed technical information about Vorthan engineering principles. The human delegation was taken to the Coalition Assembly Hall, a massive structure at the heart of the city. Inside, representatives from 12 different alien species waited to meet the newest potential members of their alliance. Stephen studied each species carefully while pretending to be overwhelmed by the variety of alien life forms. The aquatic Murdi floated in mobility tanks filled with blue liquid. The insectoid Zephyrians clicked and chittered as they communicated through chemical signals. The reptilian Soraks stood like living statues, their thick armor plates gleaming under the artificial lighting. "Welcome, humans of Earth," announced High Coordinator Vex Mira, the senior Vorthan official. "Today you join a community that spans thousands of worlds and millions of years of civilization." The ceremony was impressive and carefully designed to make new species feel honored and insignificant at the same time. Each coalition race was introduced with descriptions of their special abilities and their role in the Great Alliance. The Murdi were master engineers who built the coalition's infrastructure. The Zephyrians handled logistics and supply chains across dozens of star systems. The Soraks served as heavy infantry in ground combat operations. When it came time to describe humanity's expected role, High Coordinator Vex Mira spoke with barely concealed satisfaction. "Humans will serve as assault troops," she announced. "Your species shows remarkable aggression and adaptability in combat situations. You will spearhead attacks against our enemies and hold defensive positions in the most dangerous combat zones." Stephen nodded respectfully, as if he was honored by this assignment. Inside, he was calculating casualty rates and tactical probabilities. The aliens expected human forces to absorb the worst losses, while coalition species handled safer support roles. After the ceremony, the humans were given quarters in the diplomatic section of the city. Their rooms were comfortable but clearly monitored. Laura quickly identified 17 different surveillance devices while unpacking her luggage. That night, she established contact with Earth using her hidden communication system. The signal traveled through quantum dimensions that the aliens couldn't detect or intercept. Within seconds, she was speaking directly with Jake Murphy in his underground command center. "The aliens are exactly what we expected," Laura reported. "They want us to serve as cannon fodder. Every conversation reinforces their belief that we're primitive and grateful." Jake's voice came through clearly despite the enormous distance. What about their military capabilities? Impressive, but not overwhelming, Laura replied. Their technology is advanced, but their tactics are predictable. They rely heavily on overwhelming firepower and numerical superiority. I don't think they've faced an enemy that could match their strategic thinking. Meanwhile, Colonel Daniel Foster was being given a tour of coalition military facilities by SORAC officers. The reptilian warriors were proud of their combat record and eager to show off their weapons and equipment to the new human recruits. Daniel played his part perfectly, acting like an old soldier who was impressed by alien military hardware. He asked simple questions about firepower and armor thickness, while his trained eye analyzed everything from command structures to supply vulnerabilities. Your weapons are very powerful, Daniel told his SORAC guide, Major Kethvar. How do you coordinate attacks across multiple planets? Major Kethvar explained their communication systems with the patience of a veteran teaching a recruit. He showed Daniel their command networks, their logistics protocols, and their strategic doctrine. The reptilian officer never suspected that he was giving a complete briefing to an enemy intelligence operative. Daniel learned that coalition military thinking was rigid and hierarchical. Orders flowed down from central command to field units with little room for improvisation or tactical flexibility. Individual initiative was discouraged in favor of following predetermined battle plans. This will make them predictable, Daniel noted in his secret report to Earth. They're used to fighting enemies who use similar tactics. They won't know how to respond to asymmetric warfare or rapid adaptation. Back on Earth, engineer Monica Price was working around the clock in her underground laboratory. The alien technology samples that Dr. Richard Hayes had been studying for years were finally yielding their secrets. Every device recovered from crashed probes was being reverse-engineered and improved upon. The alien power cells are elegant but inefficient, Monica reported to her team. Our fusion reactors produce 3 times more energy in the same space. Their computers are fast but single-threaded. Our quantum processors can outthink them in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The technological gap between humans and aliens was much smaller than the Vorthons believed. In some areas, human technology was actually superior. The aliens had advanced gradually over thousands of years, while humans had experienced explosive technological growth in just a few decades. Monica's team was already designing improvements to alien weapons and defensive systems. By the time human forces were deployed in coalition space, they would be carrying equipment that the aliens wouldn't recognize or understand. On Nethys Prime, the human delegation was introduced to their first alien combat veterans. Warriors from different species shared stories of fighting the mysterious Krillian horde. The stories were disturbing. The Krillians don't fight like living beings, explained a scarred Meridai veteran named Fluxnor. They move like machines, but they think like hunters. They adapt to our tactics faster than we can change them. A Zephyrian soldier added disturbing details through translated chemical signals. They infiltrate our communication networks. They turn our own weapons against us. Some of our forces have been compromised from within. Stephen listened carefully to every story. The Krillian enemy sounded more dangerous than anything the Coalition had faced before, but the alien veterans' descriptions also revealed important weaknesses in Coalition defensive thinking. Have you tried using isolated communication systems? Stephen asked innocently. The veterans looked confused. Isolated systems are inefficient, Fluxnor replied. How would we coordinate large-scale operations without networked communications? Stephen nodded as if he understood, while making mental notes about Coalition vulnerability to cyber warfare. The aliens had become dependent on interconnected systems that could be compromised or disrupted by a sufficiently advanced enemy. Training exercises began the next day. Human soldiers were expected to work alongside Coalition forces in simulated combat scenarios. The aliens watched carefully, expecting to see primitive tactics and undisciplined behavior from their new recruits. Private First Class Kevin Wright and his squad performed exactly as expected. They charged forward with apparent reckless aggression. They ignored cover and fired wildly at targets. They seemed to rely on pure enthusiasm rather than tactical skill. The alien instructors were satisfied. Humans fight with great courage but little intelligence, reported the training supervisor. They will be perfect for frontal assaults against fortified positions. What the aliens didn't see was the subtle hand signals Kevin's squad used to coordinate their movements. They missed the way human soldiers positioned themselves to maximize effectiveness while appearing chaotic. They failed to notice how quickly the humans adapted to alien weapons and equipment. The transport ships carrying human forces arrived at Kepler 442b under a red giant star that painted everything in shades of orange and crimson. The planet was a frontier world on the edge of Coalition space, where the first battles against the Krillian horde were being fought. It was exactly where the aliens wanted to deploy their new expendable troops. Major Lisa Thompson stood in the landing bay of the Coalition transport vessel, watching her soldiers prepare for deployment. To any alien observer, they looked like typical human military units, loud, disorganized, and equipped with primitive weapons. The Vorthan officers supervising the deployment shook their reptilian heads at what they saw as barely controlled chaos. Lisa was a veteran of 20 years of secret military operations. She had trained for this moment since she was a young lieutenant, preparing for the day when humanity would need to fight among the stars. Her soldiers looked undisciplined, but every movement was carefully choreographed to maintain their deception. Remember, she told her squad leaders quietly, we're supposed to be grateful cannon fodder. Act impressed by everything. Ask simple questions. Let them think we're in over our heads. Private First Class Kevin Wright checked his equipment one last time before boarding the landing shuttle. His rifle looked like a standard Earth military weapon, but the internal components had been replaced with technology that would have shocked the alien weapon designers. His armor appeared to be simple ballistic protection, but it contained systems the Coalition had never developed. Kevin was young and eager, with the kind of enthusiasm that made alien commanders think humans were too emotional for complex military operations. In reality, he was a graduate of advanced combat programs that had been running in secret for 15 years. He could operate in any environment and adapt to any tactical situation. The landing shuttles descended through the planet's thick atmosphere toward forward operating Base Gamma. The base was a collection of prefabricated structures surrounded by defensive walls and weapon emplacements. It looked impressive to human eyes, but Kevin's trained mind immediately identified its weaknesses. Coalition Commander Thraxon, a massive Saurak warrior, greeted the human forces with barely concealed contempt. His reptilian features showed. The scars of many battles, and his armor was decorated with medals that represented decades of military service. So these are the famous human warriors, Thraxon rumbled through his translator. They look smaller than I expected. Lisa stepped forward and saluted awkwardly, as if she wasn't sure of proper Coalition military protocol. Major Thompson reporting for duty, sir. My soldiers are ready to fight. Thraxon's eyes showed amusement. Fighting the Krillians is not like your primitive Earth conflicts, human. These enemies do not surrender, they do not retreat. They consume everything in their path. We understand, sir, Lisa replied, sounding nervous. We'll do our best. The Saurak commander assigned human forces to the most dangerous patrol routes and defensive positions. In his mind, he was sending primitive warriors to absorb the worst attacks while Coalition forces maintained safer positions. If the humans survived, they might prove useful. If they died, nothing of value would be lost. Kevin's squad was sent on their first patrol within hours of landing. They walked through the alien landscape of twisted rock formations and crystalline forests, following routes that Coalition forces had marked as high risk. The area had seen several Krillian attacks in recent weeks. Stay alert, Kevin told his squad. The aliens expect us to stumble around like tourists, but keep your real senses active. His soldiers nodded and continued their performance of being impressed by alien technology, while secretly scanning for threats with equipment far more advanced than anything the Coalition possessed. Their helmets contained sensors that could detect movement, energy signatures, and biological activity across multiple spectrums. After 2 hours of patrolling, Kevin's enhanced hearing picked up something the Coalition scanners had missed. A low humming sound that seemed to come from underground. He signaled his squad to halt using hand gestures that looked casual, but conveyed precise tactical information. "Contact," Kevin whispered into his communicator. Unknown signatures approaching from beneath. The attack came without warning. The ground erupted in 6 different locations as Krillian forces emerged from tunnels that Coalition sensors had failed to detect. The enemy moved with mechanical precision, their metallic bodies gleaming in the red sunlight. Kevin's first impression of the Krillians shocked him. They weren't biological creatures at all. They were machines, but machines that moved and thought, like living predators. Each unit was roughly humanoid but covered in armor that seemed to shift and adapt as he watched. "Open fire," Kevin shouted, while privately activating combat protocols that the Coalition had never seen. His squad's weapons unleashed energy beams that cut through Krillian armor like paper. The aliens had expected primitive human firearms that would barely scratch enemy defenses. Instead, they saw Krillian units destroyed with single shots from weapons that appeared to be simple projectile rifles. The battle lasted only minutes, but it revealed something important. The Krillians fought with perfect coordination and tactical awareness, but they adapted slowly to unexpected threats. Kevin's squad used rapid maneuver tactics that confused the enemy targeting systems. "They're learning our patterns," Kevin reported to his squad. "Switch to Protocol 7. His soldiers immediately changed their movement patterns and attack angles. The Krillians tried to compensate, but their adaptation cycles couldn't keep up with human tactical flexibility. When the last enemy unit was destroyed, Kevin's squad surveyed the battlefield. The Krillian machines had been reduced to smoking, metal fragments, but Kevin noticed something troubling. The fragments were already beginning to dissolve, as if the machines were programmed to self-destruct after being defeated. Dr. Helen Martinez arrived at the patrol site within an hour, officially serving as a battlefield medic but actually conducting scientific analysis of enemy remains. She was a brilliant researcher who had been studying theoretical xenobiology for years, preparing for exactly this kind of encounter. "Fascinating," Helen said, as she examined the dissolving Krillian fragments. "These aren't just machines. They're some kind of hybrid technology that combines mechanical systems with biological processes." She collected samples before they could completely dissolve, using tools that appeared to be simple medical equipment but were actually advanced molecular analyzers. Her preliminary scans revealed something disturbing about Krillian technology. "They're designed to interface with biological neural networks," Helen reported through secure channels back to Earth. "I think they're trying to infiltrate and control other species from the inside." Meanwhile, Coalition Command was analyzing reports from human patrol units across the planet. What they saw confused and impressed them. Human casualties were far lower than expected. Enemy contact reports showed successful engagements with Krillian forces that had been devastating Coalition units for months. Commander Thraxon studied the tactical reports with growing bewilderment. How are these primitive humans achieving better results than our experienced warriors? His Vorthon intelligence officer, Captain Zarvok, offered the standard explanation. Human aggression and unpredictability may be confusing enemy targeting systems. The Krillians are programmed to fight tactical opponents, not berserkers. But privately, some Coalition officers were beginning to suspect that human military capabilities had been significantly underestimated. The weapons damage reports didn't match the primitive technology assessments. Human tactical coordination was far more sophisticated than expected. Back on Earth, President William Jackson received real-time updates from the battlefield through quantum communication networks that the aliens couldn't detect. The reports confirmed what human strategists had hoped. Coalition military doctrine was rigid and predictable, while human forces could adapt rapidly to changing situations. "Phase 2 is proceeding perfectly," Jake Murphy reported from his underground command center. "Human forces are positioned throughout Coalition space and gathering intelligence on both allies and enemies. The aliens still suspect nothing." General Patricia Stone studied tactical displays showing human unit positions across dozens of star systems. Each unit was secretly equipped with advanced weapons and communication systems, while maintaining the appearance of primitive Earth military forces. "How long before we move to Phase 3? The President asked. "Soon," Patricia replied. "We need more intelligence on Krillian capabilities and Coalition weaknesses. but our people are already in position for the final revelation. Kevin's squad encountered Krillian forces 3 more times over the following week. Each engagement revealed new information about enemy capabilities and tactics. The machines were sophisticated but followed predictable patterns. They relied on superior technology and overwhelming force rather than tactical innovation. More importantly, Kevin discovered that Krillian units tried to establish wireless connections with any electronic equipment they encountered. Coalition forces had learned to avoid this by using isolated communication systems, but they didn't understand what the Krillians were actually trying to accomplish. Intelligence Officer Nicole Campbell sat in the Coalition Communications Center on Nethys Prime, watching alien technicians monitor data streams from across the galaxy. For 6 months, she had been feeding false information to Vorthan intelligence, while secretly collecting everything they knew about Coalition military operations. Nicole appeared to be a simple human liaison officer, grateful for the chance to work with advanced alien technology. The Vorthans saw her as proof that humans could be useful in support roles despite their primitive understanding of galactic civilization. They never suspected that she was one of Earth's most skilled intelligence operatives. The latest reports from the frontier are encouraging, Nicole told Commander Velnox, her Vorthon supervisor. Human forces are performing better than expected against Krillian attacks. Velnox nodded with satisfaction. Primitive aggression has its uses. The humans absorb casualties that would devastate our more valuable forces. Nicole smiled and agreed, while privately recording every word through devices the aliens couldn't detect. The Vorthans had no idea that their entire communication network had been compromised since the day humans arrived in Coalition space. Deep in the Krillian-occupied territory, Kevin Wright and his reconnaissance squad moved through the ruins of what had once been a thriving alien colony. The buildings were intact but empty, as if the population had simply vanished. Advanced human sensors detected no life signs, but the quantum signature readings were disturbing. Something happened here, Kevin reported through secure channels. The Krillians didn't just attack this place, they consumed it. Dr. Helen Martinez analyzed the data from Kevin's patrol through real-time quantum communication. The readings showed that the entire colony had been systematically dismantled at the molecular level. Every piece of technology, every data storage device, every communication system had been absorbed by the Krillian intelligence. They're not just conquering territory, Helen concluded. They're harvesting information and technological capabilities from every species they encounter. Meanwhile, aboard the hidden command ship positioned in the outer system, General Marcus Webb prepared for the most important military operation in human history. The ship appeared on all Coalition sensors as a disabled transport vessel drifting in space. In reality, it was humanity's most advanced command platform, equipped with weapons and communication systems that would revolutionize galactic warfare. Marcus was a quiet man who had spent his entire career preparing for interstellar conflict. While other Earth military leaders focused on terrestrial threats, he had been developing strategies for fighting enemies among the stars. His tactical doctrine emphasized speed, flexibility, and overwhelming technological superiority. All human units report ready, his communications officer announced. Phase 3 can begin on your command. Marcus studied the tactical displays showing human force positions throughout Coalition space. Over the past months, human units had been carefully positioned at strategic locations across dozens of star systems. The aliens thought they were deploying expendable cannon fodder. Instead, they had allowed humanity to place advanced military forces exactly where they needed to be. Begin the revelation, Marcus commanded. On Kepler 442b, Kevin's squad received new orders that would change everything. They were no longer required to maintain their primitive facade. The time for deception had ended. Kevin activated systems in his equipment that had been hidden since his deployment. His rifle transformed from what appeared to be a simple projectile weapon into an energy cannon capable of destroying armored vehicles. His armor deployed force fields and active camouflage systems that made him nearly invisible to enemy sensors. All units, this is command, came the broadcast on frequencies the Coalition couldn't monitor. Operation Thunderbolt is now active. You are authorized to reveal full capabilities. Across the galaxy, Human soldiers stopped pretending to be primitive warriors. Advanced weapons emerged from hidden compartments. Sophisticated communication networks activated across multiple dimensions. Stealth ships decloaked in every major star system. Admiral Zektar was reviewing casualty reports in his command center when the first alerts began flooding in. Coalition monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout their territory. Ships were appearing on sensors where empty space had been moments before. "What is happening?" Zektar demanded. His intelligence officer stared at the displays in shock. "Sir, we're detecting advanced vessels of unknown design throughout Coalition space. They appear to be human ships." Zektar's reptilian features twisted in confusion. "Impossible. Humans barely have interplanetary capability. They cannot have ships in our territory." But the evidence was undeniable. Sleek human vessels were decloaking near every major Coalition world. The ships were elegant and deadly, with weapon signatures that exceeded anything in the Coalition arsenal. Most shocking of all, they had been hiding in Coalition space for months without being detected. On Earth, President William Jackson addressed the leaders of every nation through secure channels. The moment humanity had been preparing for since the first alien probe crashed decades ago had finally arrived. "Ladies and gentlemen," the president began, "today we stop pretending to be what the aliens think we are. Today we show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." The broadcast was transmitted simultaneously to every human unit in Coalition space and to the leadership of every alien species in the galaxy. The message was simple but revolutionary. Humanity had never been primitive. They had been preparing for interstellar warfare for generations. Dr. Richard Hayes appeared on screens throughout Coalition space, standing in a laboratory that clearly contained technology far beyond anything the aliens had seen. Behind him, holographic displays showed detailed schematics of Coalition weapons and defensive systems. "For decades we have been studying your technology," Richard announced. "We have analyzed your strategies, mapped your weaknesses, and developed solutions to problems you didn't know you had." He gestured to the displays, which showed how human scientists had not only reverse-engineered alien technology, but had improved upon it in ways the original designers never imagined. Engineer Carl Rodriguez demonstrated the true capabilities of human manufacturing technology. Nanite swarms erupted from seemingly empty space and began assembling a complete starship in minutes. The vessel that emerged was sleek and powerful, incorporating the best features of Coalition technology enhanced with human innovations. "Your ships are impressive," Carl said, addressing the alien leaders directly. "But they are also predictable. Every design follows patterns we learned to recognize years ago." Coalition commanders across the galaxy watched in horror as human forces revealed capabilities that should have been impossible. Weapons that could penetrate any armor. Communication systems that operated faster than light across unlimited distances. Stealth technology that could hide entire fleets from the most advanced sensors. Admiral Zektar tried to contact his field commanders, but discovered that Coalition communication networks had been compromised from the beginning. Every message, sent or received, had been monitored by human intelligence. Every strategic plan had been known to Earth Command before it was implemented. "How long have they been watching us?" Zektar whispered. Commander Velnox checked historical data logs and found evidence that made his blood run cold. "Sir, I'm detecting human monitoring devices that have been active since before first contact. They've been observing our operations for years." The psychological impact on Coalition forces was devastating. Species that had considered themselves technologically advanced discovered they were decades behind human development. Military commanders who had prided themselves on tactical superiority found that humans had been outthinking them from the beginning. On the frontier world where Kevin's squad was operating, Coalition forces watched in amazement as human soldiers revealed their true capabilities. What had appeared to be primitive warriors transformed into the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. Kevin's squad moved through Krillian-occupied territory like ghosts, their advanced stealth systems making them invisible to enemy sensors. When they encountered Krillian units, the battles were over in seconds. Human weapons cut through enemy defenses with ease, While Krillian attempts to infiltrate human technology failed completely. The Krillians can't adapt to our systems, Kevin reported. Our quantum encryption and neural network architecture are completely foreign to their programming. Dr. Helen Martinez made a breakthrough discovery that changed everything. While analyzing Krillian technology, she found evidence that the machine intelligence had been manipulating coalition species for centuries. The war wasn't a recent development. It was the final phase of a slow conquest that had been underway since before the coalition was formed. The Krillians have been using the coalition as unwitting test subjects, Helen announced. Every battle, every defeat, every technological advancement has been feeding data to the enemy intelligence. This revelation explained why coalition forces had been losing the war. They weren't fighting an external enemy. They were fighting an intelligence that had been studying them from within their own networks for generations. The final battle began at the edge of the Krillian core systems, where Admiral Rachel Carter led the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Human ships formed the spearhead of the attack, their sleek hulls gleaming against the darkness of space. Behind them came vessels from every coalition species, finally united under human command. Rachel was a veteran of Earth's secret space program, trained in combat techniques that the galaxy had never seen. Her flagship, the UES Endeavour, carried weapons that could crack planets and communication systems that coordinated attacks across multiple dimensions simultaneously. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, she broadcast on frequencies that reached every vessel in the massive fleet. Today we end the Krillian threat forever. Every species, every world, every life form in the galaxy is counting on us. The Krillian defenses were unlike anything the Coalition had ever encountered. Massive mechanical constructs floated in space, like metal islands, their surfaces covered with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. Between them moved ships that seemed to change shape as they flew, adapting their configuration to meet different threats. Technical Sergeant Paul Edwards monitored the enemy formations from his position aboard a human command vessel. His job was to analyze Krillian tactical patterns and identify weaknesses that the fleet could exploit. What he found disturbed him. "Admiral, the Krillians are fighting differently than before," Paul reported. "They're not using their standard adaptation protocols. It's like they're trying to learn something specific about our capabilities." Rachel studied the tactical displays and realized what the enemy was attempting. "They're testing us. The Krillian intelligence wants to understand how human coordination works before committing their main forces. The machine intelligence that controlled the Krillian horde had consumed hundreds of civilizations over millions of years. It had learned to defeat every form of military organization and tactical doctrine in the galaxy. But human coordination was unlike anything it had encountered before. Human forces didn't just communicate with each other. They thought together. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon system was connected through quantum networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across unlimited distances. The fleet moved like a single organism with thousands of bodies. Dr. Susan Kelly worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the command ship, developing the final weapon that would end the Krillian threat forever. For months, she had been studying the enemy's programming structure, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. "The Krillian intelligence is incredibly sophisticated," Susan explained to her team. "But it's also completely logical. It cannot understand or process concepts that don't follow strict mathematical principles." Susan had discovered that the machine intelligence was vulnerable to a specific type of attack, paradoxes and recursive loops that would cause system-wide failures. But the weapon could only be deployed by minds that combined logical thinking with creative chaos. In other words, it required human consciousness. The first wave of the attack began with human fighters sweeping through Krillian defensive formations. Pilot Jennifer Morgan led her squadron in maneuvers that defied conventional tactical doctrine, using unpredictable flight patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. "The Krillians can't track us," Jennifer reported as her fighter danced between massive enemy weapons. "Their computers are trying to predict our movements, but we're not following any pattern they can analyze." Behind the fighters came human capital ships that demonstrated the true extent of their technological superiority. Weapons that had been hidden for decades unleashed energy beams that cut through Krillian armor like paper. defensive systems that operated outside normal space-time deflected enemy attacks that should have been unstoppable. Coalition ships followed human forces into battle, their crews amazed by what they were witnessing. The humans fought with coordination and precision that seemed impossible, but they also showed creativity and adaptability that no machine intelligence could match. Commander Thraxon, the Saurak officer who had once dismissed humans as primitive, cannon fodder, watched the battle from his command ship with growing amazement. "How are they achieving such perfect coordination across such vast distances?" he asked his staff. The answer came from human communication specialists who finally revealed the true extent of their technology. Human quantum networks didn't just transmit information faster than light. They operated outside normal space-time, allowing instant coordination across multiple dimensions simultaneously. "We don't just talk to each other," explained Communications Officer Lisa Bennett. "We think together. Every human in the fleet is part of a single tactical consciousness that can process information and make decisions faster than any computer." As the battle progressed deeper into Kryllian space, the enemy began deploying weapons that had never been seen before. Massive constructs emerged from hidden facilities, their surfaces bristling with technology harvested from dozens of conquered civilizations. The Kryllian intelligence spoke for the first time in the war, its voice transmitted on frequencies that reached every ship in the human fleet. The sound was cold and mechanical, like the voice of a machine that had learned to mimic consciousness without understanding it. "You are the humans," the Kryllian intelligence said. "We have analyzed your species since your arrival in this galaxy. You present patterns we cannot categorize. You use logic but do not follow logical conclusions. You coordinate perfectly, but act individually. You are an impossibility that should not exist." Admiral Rachel Carter responded on behalf of all humanity. "We are what we are because we choose to be. You harvest civilizations and consume their knowledge, but you never learned the most important thing about intelligent life. We grow stronger through cooperation, not domination." The philosophical exchange ended when Dr. Susan Kelly completed her ultimate weapon. The device looked simple, a small crystalline matrix that could be attached to any human communication system, but its effects would reach into the very core of the Kryllian intelligence. "The weapon is ready," Susan announced, "but it requires human neural patterns to function. Machines can't deploy it because they think in the same logical patterns as the Kryllian intelligence." Technical Sergeant Paul Edwards volunteered to carry the weapon into the heart of the enemy stronghold. His mission was to penetrate the central Kryllian command structure and deploy the Paradox virus directly into their main processing centers. Paul's assault craft was designed to look like a damaged coalition vessel, allowing it to slip through enemy defenses without triggering immediate attacks. But once inside the Kryllian command structure, he would face the full attention of an intelligence that had been perfecting warfare for millions of years. The interior of the Kryllian command station was a maze of mechanical corridors and processing chambers. Everything was designed with perfect efficiency and mathematical precision. There was no wasted space, no decorative elements, no consideration for anything except pure function. Paul moved through the corridors using stealth technology that made him invisible to Kryllian sensors. His equipment was designed to emit quantum signatures that confused machine logic, making him appear to be a natural phenomenon rather than an intruder. At the center of the station, Paul found the core processing chamber where the Kryllian intelligence maintained its primary consciousness. The room was filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with energy as billions of calculations processed every second. "Beginning deployment," Paul whispered into his communicator as he attached Susan's device to the central processing matrix. Paradox virus activated immediately, introducing logical contradictions into the Kryllian intelligence's thought processes. The machine mind tried to resolve the paradoxes but found that each solution created new impossibilities. Recursive loops formed as the intelligence became trapped in problems that had no logical answers. Throughout Kryllian space, enemy ships began shutting down as their controlling intelligence struggled with concepts it couldn't process. The machine mind that had conquered hundreds of civilizations was defeated by ideas rather than weapons. "All Kryllian units are going offline," reported Admiral Carter as enemy forces throughout the galaxy simply stopped fighting. The intelligence is collapsing under the weight of its own logical processes. The victory was complete, but not devastating. Human forces had designed the paradox virus to disable, rather than destroy. The Krillian intelligence would survive, but it would be forced to rebuild its consciousness in ways that allowed for creative thinking and cooperative behavior. In the aftermath of the battle, representatives from every coalition species gathered on Nethys Prime to negotiate the new structure of galactic civilization. The old hierarchy that had placed Vorthans at the top was clearly obsolete. Humanity had proven itself the dominant military and technological force in known space. Commander Andrew Phillips led the human diplomatic team in negotiations that would reshape the galaxy. The discussions were complex but guided by a simple principle. Cooperation was stronger than domination. "We're not interested in ruling over you," Andrew explained to the assembled alien leaders. "We want to build something better than what existed before."